So, hello everyone. Welcome to this afternoon session dedicated to GSA, European GNSS Agency. So we have 4 speakers this afternoon in this session. My name is Daniel Sugar. I am from the Faculty of Geodesy, University of Zagreb, and I am dealing with the GNSS and Galileo, obviously, as well. So our first presenter is Fiammetta Diani. She is head of the Market Development Department at the GSA, and her presentation is entitled Toward a More Competitive EU Space Downstream, the GSA Contribution. So, Fiammetta, hello.
Hello, good morning, everybody. Can you hear me well?
Yes, we can hear you. The floor is yours. Please.
Okay, so I'm sharing my presentation. Can you also see the slide?
No, we cannot see the slide. Yes, now we can see. Yes, thank you. You can go on.
Okay, thank you. So I would like to introduce you briefly what we are doing at the GSA to foster a more competitive space downstream sector in the European Union. So what we call downstream means all the applications, products and services that we do using space data that are for daily life and for the competitiveness of our small, medium enterprises, startups and companies, and that go to final citizens as a service. So I will go through with the GSA. So what is our mission and know-how? What are the benefits of satellite navigation that is made in the European Union, Galileo and EGNOS, and what we do expect for the future. As you know, we will go to a next financial perspective in which our agency will enlarge its scope, as our acting executive director explained this morning, and I will explain what are the new opportunities from our side. So about the GSA. So the GSA is the European GNSS Agency. It's the, let's say, the arm of the European Commission to implement the Galileo and EGNOS program. And since when it was created a few years ago, it is user-oriented. So we have our linking a space to the user needs. And so we are devoted to the users, to the governments, and to the institutions, as well as to the businesses. Our headquarters is in Prague. We are today around 200 people of different nationalities of the Union, and we have operational centers all around Europe. But what we do at the GSA, what is our mission? So first of all, our mission is to provide the services of EGNOS and Galileo. This service delivery is 24/7, so we are always on at the GSA. Then we ensure the security of the systems and services, and this is a very important task for the sensitiveness of the navigation systems in Europe. And finally, and the most interesting for this presentation, is that we foster the use of the space data for all the market segments. You see here a representation of this market segment. What do we mean? We mean, for example, the transport, aviation, rail, maritime, automotive, but we mean also the professional market segments, such as agriculture, geomatics, as well as the more consumer or mass market oriented, like location-based services, Internet of Things. And we are specialized in these different market segments. This is a bit the added value that the GSA, the agency, is giving to the program. So to speak the real language of the final users and to be close to them. But what are these services that I mentioned? So first of all, Galileo is our worldwide system. It is operational since December 2016, and it's providing services 24/7. These services are the open service, that is the one that you can use today in your smartphone, and is giving you a more accurate position, being used together with the GPS and with other GNSS. And very soon, this open service will be equipped with an authentication of the navigation messages. So a way to know that the signal is really coming from the satellites and has not been manipulated. Then Galileo is providing also a very important service that I will give an example later on. That is the search and rescue, a specific service for people in distress that can be located also in absence of mobile phone coverage and even in the middle of the sea. And finally, the high accuracy service that will come in 2021. This is a decimeter level service that will be dedicated to professional users or to the world of automation, for example, automated vehicles that require a more substantial accuracy down to decimeter level. Last but not least, Galileo is equipped with a public regulated service. This is an encrypted high security service in the hands of the governments that in jargon we call PRS, that is the acronym for Public Regulated Services, and that will serve authorized users from the member states, such as the police, the border police, the Coast Guard, and so on. But as I said, we don't have only Galileo, we have also a regional system that is working all over Europe, and is called EGNOS. This is an augmentation of GPS today and of Galileo tomorrow that bring down to meter accuracy the performances of GPS. It is mainly used, it was conceived and designed for aviation to permit to the aircraft to approach the airports without using the ground infrastructure, but is widely used also in precision farming and in many other applications that require this good accuracy for free in Europe. So, but let's see how this system provides benefits to the citizens and to the businesses. So first of all, we like to say that the European GNSS, EGNOS and Galileo is a success story. In fact, we have today more than 1 billion users worldwide that are using Galileo, just a few years after it has been declared operational. And we have 26 car brands in Europe that use Galileo in the frame of eCall. We have hundreds of models of drones that use Galileo. Most of the farmers in Europe, 80% that use EGNOS. And so, thanks also to the work of the GSA, we have been able to reach out to these users to explain them the benefits, to demonstrate them the benefits so that they took it on board. Today in Europe, 6-7% of our economy relies on European GNSS, up to 10% on space data in general. So this gives an idea of how important are these infrastructures and of the kind of economic, let's say, environment they create. In fact, we have 60 billion revenues expected in Europe thanks to Galileo and EGNOS by 2027. And we support more than 50,000 jobs in the European Union annually. And what we did at the GSA to reach this level of adoption, this level of use of Galileo and EGNOS. So as I was explaining before, we have a strategy that is based on the different market segments. And so we have experts in segments. Can I ask if possible to mute the microphone in case you're not speaking, because I can hear a lot of background noise from the street. Thank you. So our methodology is based on 3 main pillars. First of all, we think that a good market and user knowledge is essential to do every action that will bring to better competitiveness in Europe. For this reason, we have 2 publications that you may know. One is the market report that we publish every 2 years that give a forecast, the actual situation and forecast of the GNSS downstream market, as well as we have the technology report that give instead a vision of what is the use of technology, where to invest in terms of research and innovation. This publication became a reference for entrepreneurs, not only in Europe, who wants to invest in this field. And we have also a biannual user consultation platform in which we gather together all the users of the European GNSS. Once we know the market, we want to stimulate the demand of our infrastructure of EGNOS and Galileo. And for this reason, we work very close to the users, and we design with them the enablers to use Galileo, for example, standard if needed, cost-benefit analysis, testing, and we try to remove any barrier that may be to the adoption. And finally, we would like that this nice work is completed by made in EU products, because we are here also to foster the competitiveness of our companies. And for this, we have two tools that the Commission gave us during this financial perspective, and we hope they will be confirmed and enhanced during the next one. One in the Horizon Europe for the development of application that my colleague will explain later on. And the other one, the fundamental elements, a specific program of development of receivers, so of key user technologies. And we hope to enlarge the scope of this in the next financial perspective. Some examples, because this is words, but we wanted to give you also some flavor of what we developed in these years. One example is the first Galileo-enabled autonomous car, all made in Europe, from the car to the electronics on board, the so-called Tier 1, and the chip inside. That was demonstrated last November in France. Another example is developed by an SME, so a small medium company, is a drone that inspects the solar panels in a big, let's say, solar plant to improve the maintenance and to automatize it. They are exporting this technology even outside Europe, for example, in Japan. And finally, we are working also with other SME that produces silicon, so a chip, to stimulate the innovation also in these fields. And we have an example of a Galileo European chipset manufacturer that is currently growing from a startup to a most structured company. Galileo gives also an answer to citizens and to critical infrastructure. So Galileo is used, maybe it's not so evident as for the positioning that we use every day, but is widely used together with other GNSS for the synchronization of the networks. For example, the telecommunication network we use every day with our mobile phone, or the energy grids, and also is used to timestamp the financial transaction. And Galileo is also essential for many emergency services. For example, the European e-call that is now in every new model of car, sending the position in case of accident is based on Galileo. And the same, it will happen soon for the E112, the enhanced 112, that will transmit the position when we call the 112. That is today in the deployment phase. So in this sense, Galileo gives an answer to the citizens also for the safety and security of the European infrastructures. As I said before, one example related to search and rescue. This is a good example of, let's say, a social service that Galileo is doing, saving people in distress and decreasing a lot the time to be located and to be rescued. At the same time, stimulating the competitiveness of EU companies. In fact, to use search and rescue, it's required a special beacon. These special beacons are made in EU, most of them. And the EU players had the advantage to get on board Galileo and offer a better service to their customer. And this increased a lot their competitiveness at worldwide level. Another main contribution of Galileo is related to mobility and to a European traffic management system. In fact, Galileo and EGNOS are used transversally to many modes of transport, from aviation to inland waterways, and we hope very soon to the trains as well. And can increase the safety, optimize the efficiency of this transport, and in this way contribute also to the Green Deal challenges of the new Commission. In this sense, Galileo is not limited to transport or to professional, but is really inside the new main trends of the digital age. For example, in 5G, especially for the synchronization, in Internet of Things, for the localization of most of the things connected that are also to be located in the autonomous system, as well as the artificial intelligence. Just to conclude with an example about all these benefits that we are trying to make concrete and usable via the application, recently we developed an application to answer the emergency generated by COVID-19. This emergency was the transport of goods around Europe, when at the borders today we have the member states are doing earth control and other checks that slow down a lot the transit of goods, creating quite substantial problems. So to react to this, the European Commission, together with the member states, issued the recommendation for a green lane initiative in which the member states has to ensure a certain time for transit of the goods and priority to the most important ones, like medicines, medical supplies, or food. And to help this process, we developed an application with the colleagues of DG DEFIS and DG MOVE that is monitoring the situation at 187 borders around Europe. It has an interface for the border police that can understand how it's going at his own border and in the others around, and also an interface for the truck drivers and the logistic companies that can predict the time of waiting at the border and plan the trip accordingly to make it more fluent. And also this permits the reporting of the situation. So this is just to show how the satellite navigation can react quickly, thanks to the GSA as well, to also current situation. This application is also an example of synergies with Copernicus, because the situation at the borders can be monitored also with images coming from the Copernicus satellites. Let me conclude my presentation talking a bit about the future. So, as I said, the GSA today is mainly dealing with the satellite navigation, and this has been our asset for the last years. We demonstrated with the results of adoption and economic results of competitiveness of the companies how this methodology is effective. And we have now been granted by the co-legislators of the opportunity to expand this methodology to other areas of the EU Space Program. The first area in which we will have a role, that is the subject of the today event, is the Earth observation, and in particular Copernicus. So what the new agency, which name will be EU Agency for the Space Program, will do, will be to act mainly toward the users that are the so-called other users. So they are not the traditional users of Copernicus for which it was created, so the core users, but are all the other potential users that create the so-called Copernicus economy, and that can be targeted with added value services and applications. And in this sense, the methodology that I explained based on the three pillars can be applied also in the case of Copernicus, especially leveraging the synergies. There are areas in which Galileo is well developed, for example, in transport, and where Copernicus could enter as a synergic technology to Galileo. At the same time, also Galileo could benefit of Copernicus being more used, for example, in areas where traditionally Copernicus is a key technology, for example, in climate change or other environmental related application. So building on these synergies and building on the methodology that we proved, we intend to support the European Commission, the SME and ecosystem of Copernicus, cooperating with the current and trusted entities to make to increase the competitiveness of our sector worldwide. Another area where the co-legislator is giving us a clear role is the satellite telecommunication. for governmental users. So one of the new components of the space program is now called GovSatcom, and is a system that will provide the services of telecommunication to the member states and to their users in a secure way. And the role of USPA is mainly the one of federating these users. For this, we already started to create a network among the member states and the represented users, as well as the EU agencies. And we do believe that putting together the Galileo service for governmental users, the telecommunication service, as well as the Copernicus services dedicated to this world, we can create integrated use cases and approach the governmental users with a single offer, integrating different technologies and building on synergies. So this is our engagement for the future on which we would like to build the new agency, the new USPA. So with this, I conclude my introduction. My colleagues later on will go in more details for what concern the synergies, especially with Copernicus, as well as the current programs that support the EU competitiveness and give a flavor of the future. So I leave with them and I will be available for any question.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you, Fiammetta, for your great presentation. You gave us an overview of what the GSA is doing in the field of Galileo, EGNOS, and Copernicus. We will come back to you during the Q&A session. I hope that there will be questions related to your presentation. Thank you once again. I will invite now Edward from the Market Development Innovation, and he will have a presentation about EO/GNSS Synergies, a practical approach. So, Edward, the floor is yours.
Hello, thank you very much, Daniel. Can you see my presentation?
Yes, we can see it.
So, yeah, my presentation is a bit continuation of what Fiammetta presented, and I want to focus on the synergies of GNSS and Earth observation. You now know after the last presentation what are we doing at the GSA, but I want to show you a bit of more practical or technical perspective in what are the complementarities of these two programs or systems at service level, and give you some examples. So to see what are the potentialities that the convergence of these two services and the jointly use can bring to the society. So from one side, we have seen that we have Galileo and EGNOS as a GNSS system on one side, that it's basically providing satellite-based navigation, or what we call PVT, position, velocity, and timing. And on the other hand, we have the other U-Space program, Copernicus, providing Earth observation data, lots and lots of data of worldwide information for providing from satellites, but also in situ sensors, which apparently these two programs, apart from being most of it satellite-based, it's not so evident the synergies, but you will see in a moment that that these synergies are really a reality. You have seen this slide before, so just to recap, what is the work that we are doing at the market development team in the GSA? What are the activities? Which are the main pillars? And just to show that these main pillars are also something that can be seen as synergies with Copernicus, which is the market intelligence and the user engagement, as well as demand support, but also the downstream part for the offer creation, which is mainly fostering the creation of ideas, products, and businesses, which we are now doing on GNSS. But you can see similar things happening to Copernicus, and this can be strengthened as well with this part of the other users that Fiammetta was commenting. So in areas like market monitoring, engagement with stakeholders, or R&D, there are evident synergies between the two programs. But I want to focus my presentations more on the application side, on the application level, where there are a lot of commonalities that are already being exploited, but they have a lot of potential to be exploited much farther and create more innovative ideas with the combined use of GNSS and Copernicus. So basically, what I'm referring, you can see here both value chains for both services, GNSS and Copernicus. And what I'm referring more is at this level, where the added value of the usage of these services is, and where it has more impact in relation to the final user, that it's at the end user the services, and it's creating these innovative solutions. So what we have now is, from one side, we have Copernicus that identifies already several sectors of innovation where they are addressing and using Copernicus services. And you have seen them probably in the presentations this morning: agriculture, forestry, urban monitoring, coastal and maritime exploration, oil and gas, blah, blah, blah. You have several examples here. And the markets that we have seen before, that we are addressing and we are targeting in GNSS for transport, for LBS and professional segments. So individually, let's say that these services are already providing benefits, and the users in these markets are already using on one side GNSS, but on the other side Copernicus. But the exploitation and the usage of both together open new, sometimes already explored, but sometimes unexplored areas where innovation can be found. And these are some obvious areas such as agriculture, but others not so obvious, like disaster management, natural resources management, smart mobility, or insurance, and many others. And many of these solutions go and with the usage, combined usage of Copernicus and GNSS, goes toward the support of achieving the goals of the European Green Deal. Actually, a study was published in 2018, January 2018, by the United Nations, was in this regards trying to see what are the contributions of GNSS and Copernicus towards the Sustainable Development Goals. This was a study that was done by the United Nations with support of the GSA, and I encourage everybody to read it. It's a very nice read, and you can see, apart from highlighting what are the contributions to the different Sustainable Development Goals, you can see different use cases and what are the different indicators that are addressed, and highlighting the commonalities and the convergence of GNSS and their observation towards this. But on a more practical approach, I wanted to show you some examples of applications and also projects that we have funded here at the GSA. One of the obvious ones is market is agriculture, in which you might imagine that agriculture is a more traditional area with not too much technology, but on the contrary, actually, the ecosystem of agriculture is highly usage of technology. So already farmers are benefiting from GNSS services, using, for example, in applications such as precision farming. Also, they are using Earth observation and particularly Copernicus images for things such as monitoring of soil moisture, monitoring of crop development, or also weather forecasting. But there are many other technologies that the agricultural world is using: drones, IoT, robotics, which means this is a highly technological environment. So here, this is a clear example where the converged usage, the joint usage of EGNOS and Copernicus services can provide real benefits. And many of these benefits are in line to the objectives that are foreseen in the Farm to Fork strategy of the European Green Deal, which basically it consists in trying to produce food in a more sustainable way. As examples of some examples of these applications, for example, could be variable rate applications, which consist in the application of fertilizers and pesticides in the most efficient way. Here we can see that Copernicus can provide the maps and the indicators such as soil moisture or the health of crops, where it's putting this information in a map. And then with GNSS, you can guide the vehicles and spray and apply these fertilizers and pesticides in the areas that are exactly needed. So there are clear benefits such as a lower environmental footprint, reduction of resources and costs, and involving at the end higher productivity and profitability. Another example is the Common Agricultural Policy, which basically, among other things, it monitors what it is produced at each specific time in different crops. And there is a monitoring, constant monitoring of these productions. So this is can be done through images from Copernicus in what is called checks by monitoring, but also can be complemented with one application that was developed under the GSA instruction, which is the GNSS 4CAP, which can be produced, lets farmers to take photos of their crops and geolocalize, geotag these photos. So ensuring that this image is taken exactly on the crop that it should be, and the product that it's produced is exactly what it should be. Or also it could be used GNSS for taking the images with the drones and geo tagging it. So the usage of these two combined applications is benefiting the reduction of costs, obvious reduction of cost and resources for doing this common agricultural policy. Another example in agriculture could be monitoring of soil moisture with Earth observation, but also with GNSS reflectometry. You can update data about precipitation, about weather forecast, about the level of moisture of the soil, or data about the transpiration of the ground. While with GNSS, you can let the user go to a specific area and know with the map produced by Copernicus where exactly this can be applied and the data refers to in a specific place. So in this sense, you can save a huge amount of water only applying it to the places where it's really needed. But not only in agriculture, there are of course other fields where these synergies and complementarities can be applied. One is, for example, disaster management. Exactly what this H2020 project, which was funded in a GNSS call, the project called SARA, it was addressing a solution for search and rescue using images from Copernicus on one side, but also GNSS on the other, to provide a solution for supporting and managing migration fluxes with particular attention in the crisis in the Mediterranean Sea. So another different application that highlights the benefits of using both technologies. And another example that it was the one implemented by the project GIMS, another H2020 project, which was monitoring landslides and ground deformation. So this project was gathering information about different sources. One was images from Copernicus, another was data from GNSS, measuring GNSS positioning, and as well as other in situ sensors like inertial measurement units. So with these different data was combining and providing all of them different aspects and different stages of movement of the ground. So, for example, with the movement detected by Copernicus, you could predict or you could forecast in case there would be a landslide or the Earth movement that could eventually provoke a deformation and some dangerous situations, while GNSS could monitor in real time millimetric or centimetric movements of the of the ground and produce real-time alerts to the population. So this was a project, as I said, also funded in a GNSS call of H2020. But you can also see many other applications in which the synergies are evident and are already being used, but have also a lot of potential to produce more innovation and more ideas in these areas, such as environmental management, urban planning and mobility, or even smart grids. So they use combine of maps and information provided by Copernicus and the real-time positioning tagging of GNSS provides all these new areas of exploration. So just to conclude, for us it's very obvious the complementarity of both space systems. So we see together as space data. On one side you have seen GNSS can give the location, the georeferencing that can provide to Earth observation measurements. And on the other hand, observation can provide the context that has the location provided by GNSS. So with these two components together, we see that in the future and with enhancements of both systems, assuming that the resolution of Earth observation can go to the decimeter accuracy and the same as for GNSS. So all this can lead to new applications that what we call context-aware applications using both sources of data. So for us, it's very exciting the possibilities that this opens, and of course we are going to try to support users and the community in the innovation aspects in using these two technologies together, as you will probably see in the next presentation. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Edward, for your presentation. So it was really interesting to see how the synergies in agriculture, landslide, and other applications really took place at the daily level. We'll come back to you during the Q&A session. Thank you for your presentation at the moment. And I will invite Marta Krivanis-Brzostovska. I made the training in order to be able to pronounce that correctly, I hope. So she comes from, she's head of Downstream Research and Development section. And she will present us research and innovation initiatives boosting eGNSS market uptake. So the first slide is on the screen. Marta, the floor is yours, please.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, I do. Hello, everyone. Thank you very much, Daniel, for this introduction. Good afternoon, everybody. I will focus my presentation on funding opportunities, but I will somehow summarize what we have today, and I will give the overview what we can expect in the future based on the gathered needs of the users. So let me just move the... Okay. So overall, the research and development is very important part of the space programs. And the EU space strategy is putting a lot of attention to the fact that the investment in the downstream space developments are necessary to demonstrate the important role that the space is playing in achieving the objectives of the EU space policies. The eGNSS downstream R&D funding has a key objective, actually. The first one is to foster the market uptake. And it can be done through different activities. First of all, through boosting the demand among public and private users, facilitating access to use of the space services, And finally, stimulating the development and use of innovative downstream applications. And I will focus mainly my presentation on the last point. But overall, why to invest in space and why to put priority in the downstream EGNSS? Because it is a very promising market. As you could see in this slide, the annual growth rate by 2025 is expected to reach 7%. Currently, the EU space infrastructures are built and are available. And now it is the time to invest more in development of value-added applications and services, where the new jobs creation is, that thanks to which we will exploit the infrastructure that is already existing. So overall, for us in the GSA, the users are always in the center. So we are listening to the user needs, and we are structuring and somehow designing the research and development programs together with European Commission in a way to respond to the user's objectives. So we are focusing on the user-driven approach. We are linking the user needs to space somehow. And why we are investing in R&D to foster the adoption, as I said, and it will build the competitive EU downstream industry, SMEs, startups, and will enable us to have the made in EU products. So actually, for several years now, we are running different R&D programs. And as you can see in this graph, they are addressing the needs alongside the value chain and are focused towards the EGNSS adoptions. So what programs we are having now? We are running Fundamental Elements program that is focusing on the development of European chipset receivers and antennas. So this is the hardware part. Then we are having Horizon 2020 program, which is dedicated to the application developers, to commercial service providers. So the main objective is to develop the products in forms of applications in different market segments. Currently, we've got 70 projects running in Horizon 2020. We achieved very good results with more than 20 products, 10 patents, 200 prototypes, and the projects are still running, so we do expect more. The last call of Horizon 2020 is now under the grant agreement signature, so we are closing in 2020 the grant signature of the last call. And also we are having smaller programs with smaller budget that are supporting somehow startups, SMEs. So the example includes Galileo Masters. Already for 12 years, we are offering the GSA special prize for the most innovative ideas when it comes to the usage of Galileo and EGNOS data. And we are also running My Galileo app, this time My Galileo drone application that is supporting startups and SMEs. We achieved many good results, as it was mentioned previously. I will not focus too much on the success stories because also Edward was quoting already the Horizon 2020 projects, but portfolio of our projects are really dedicated to different market segments. I encourage you to have a look on our website to the project portfolio to learn more about the topics, but just to give you kind of idea. So for example, we've got Green Patrol project that is supporting this is the innovative robotic solution for integrated pest management in crops in the greenhouses. So thanks to Galileo, the robot has the ability to navigate inside the greenhouses more precisely, let's say. So the new signals of EGNSS together with sensor fusion are providing additional value when it comes to precise navigation. Also, the robot uses artificial intelligence It's really cool solution, and the robot is available at the prototype stage now, but the consortium has got the clear intention to commercialize the solution. Another project that was developed this time within fundamental elements is fantastic. This is the project that developed, as mentioned, the antenna and receiver, because the program is dedicated to antennas, receiver, and chipsets. So the consortium developed the navigation and timing authenticated sensor for timing infrastructure, and it is actually the entire solution is allowing the centimeter level positioning for timing applications. So here you can see the products within this project. 3 patents were submitted and 4 hardware prototypes developed. And again, there is a clear intention to commercialize it. Overall, so this is what we did currently. We had programs, the R&D programs that with which we achieved great results. But after 2020, we are facing the new financial perspective. But actually, not only the financial perspective will be new, but also the GNSS market will change. Because what will happen after 2020, Galileo will be fully operational, all the differentiators will be available. The Galileo-enabled receivers are already in use, and the market will grow significantly. Already, there will be a wide portfolio of commercially available applications on the market. The users, on the other hand, the user needs will expand because of the innovative applications like automation, ambient intelligence, security. So there will be still new user needs. And also the technology will advance, like smart dust, multi-constellation, MEMS integration, multi-frequency, and other systems will emerge. And also we have to remember that other GNSS systems will also evolve. So the situation will be different. That's why we believe that through the new financial perspective and the new research and development program, we should consider these changes. And because of that, we performed with the users set of consultations in order to define what is actually needed when it comes to R&D. And these outcomes of the consultation, there is the publicly available report on the GSA website, but I will try to give you some short summary on what was discussed and agreed. So overall, grants and procurement, as in Horizon 2020 or fundamental elements, these are the tools that are needed by the industry. The industry, the stakeholders agreed that this is something efficient, they are used to implementation of that, and we should continue, though the budget should be more important rather than 150 millions that we had currently in Horizon 2020. So the budget of Horizon Europe should be more significant. Also, we should now, after 2020, focus on to complete the market uptake in long-term regulated market segments, because as you know, in aviation, maritime, or rail, the implementation of new technologies, the adoption takes some time, and we have to close the loop. We have to complete the market uptake, especially in this market segment. We should also position Galileo as the leader where its differentiator makes a difference. And Fiammetta mentioned all the differentiators Galileo is offering. So we should focus on the differentiators. And finally, we should support the EU industry to export. We should build competitive industry in Europe. And in order to achieve all of this, we need some new funding tools as well to cope with the needs. So obviously grants and procurement are needed, but we should also introduce the other tools, like for example, innovation procurement, in order to involve more in R&D the public sector. We should focus on the centers of excellence in order to leverage the regional and national competences. Finally, we should support startups and SMEs, because through Horizon 2020, was not the best tool dedicated to startups. It took simply too long time to obtain the grant for smaller companies. And we should focus a bit on the private funding, like venture capital, to scale up our startups in Europe. So this is just a summary somehow that after 2020, we should continue with what is working well, what proved to work well, but also we should introduce the new funding tools, and it should be done through Horizon Europe and also the space program regulation in the new USPA. So the landscape of the new GNSS funding tools that we discussed with stakeholders is covering all stages of development. So actually from the initial idea to the commercialization phase and the expansion of the business. And what are the tools now, one by one? So the first one, I already mentioned, these are the standard grants and procurement that are needed in order to support the large implementation projects, to support the close to market applications, to support the uptake of new services of Galileo, to build the synergies with other systems like Copernicus, to support further development of chipset and receivers, to provide support to awareness raising, to dissemination, promotion activities, and also to focus on the international cooperation, so not necessarily in Europe, but also to go beyond Europe. And in order to do that, we are ready. We performed several preparatory actions. We were running Horizon 2020 Fundamental Elements program. We understand very well the need of somehow the synergies with other systems, that this is now the time to exploit it. We are continuously monitoring the market and technology trends, which also enable us to define the topics of the new programs the best. So we already in the European Commission, we are defining the first GNSS R&D funding priorities in the area of application receivers, chipset, and antennas. So another input we received during consultation was that we should involve more public authorities. We should support them to buy the technologies that will be exploiting Galileo and EGNOS data. Because it is not only bringing the innovative products on the market that are owned by the public sector, but it's also enabling somehow the smaller companies to develop these products. So actually it's bringing several benefits for different stakeholders. And for that, there is a dedicated tool that is called innovation procurement. We already have a pilot of this innovation procurement in the last call of Horizon 2020. And now we are at the stage of the grant award. So soon we hope to launch the first pilot on the innovation procurement. So this is to involve the public authorities more in purchasing the Galileo-based products and services. Also, what was discussed with our stakeholders is that SMEs and startups, for them it's very difficult to find somehow the space in Horizon 2020 or fundamental elements, because the time to grant is very long. So they need to have the fast tool that will provide them support to increase the chances to succeed. They cannot wait often 1 year to learn if their solution could be funded or not. So our idea, together with the European Commission, is to build Cassini program that is already quoted in the SME strategy of Europe. This is the program that will support the startups and SMEs from the idea generation through incubation and access to finance. So this is the specific program that will be available for startups and SMEs. Another input that was strongly highlighted by the stakeholders is to work together with existing venture capital. So to blend the public funds together with private ones. In this direction, we already, as GSA, we have signed a memorandum of understanding with European Investment Bank. We committed to work together in order to support the companies in the access to finance. And last but not least, it was said that actually we should also focus at the national or regional competences in dedicated specific eGNSS market-related area. And through that, we can build a community for partnership in downstream space. We can create a focal point for knowledge management in each region or the country. And this initiative we are calling the Excellence Centers. And these Excellence Centers could support at regional levels companies, but also, as mentioned, they can serve as the focal point for the entire Europe in specific market domain. So what we did, actually, we performed in order to understand the need and somehow to program it for the future. We analyzed country by country the competences. We discussed with several member states. We did the desk research in order to understand and to create a map of Europe with different competences and needs. So these were all the needs when it comes to the tools that could support the market uptake of eGNSS. And also we discussed with the eGNSS community, eGNSS stakeholders, when it comes to applications, what are the needs actually when it comes to the topics that we should support. So we've got the extensive list of applications that are emerging by market segment that I will not read, of course, now, but just to give an idea what was really repeated several times in several market segments. So these were drones, where really Galileo and can bring a huge value. Also the autonomous driving, overall autonomous vehicles, support to connected automated driving, support to consumer applications, highlighting the robotics. And overall, we analyzed and we believe that usage of Galileo and Copernicus downstream applications are strongly supporting the EU policies when it comes to digital era, because the data from these both systems is key. We are supporting the Green Deal because, as it was highlighted, the smart mobility or the agriculture, these are the market segments where Galileo, EGNOS, and Copernicus are playing the key role. So there is many opportunities in the future. We hope to have the tools to implement. We understand the needs of the users, and we hope that the future will bring many innovative applications and funding opportunities for the stakeholders. Also, just to mention that on the GSA website, you can find the funding guide that is listing not only the GSA funding tools, but also other funding tools that are supporting the space downstream R&D. So that's it from my side. Thank you very much for your attention, and I'm available for any questions.
Okay, thank you, Marta, for your comprehensive presentation. You gave us an overview of what GSA is being carrying out in developing a downstream value chain. Thank you for your presentation. We'll come back to you in the Q&A session. And now I will invite Adriana Rad from GSA Interinstitutional Relations, and she is going to present us the presentation titled "The Future Perspectives, New EU Space Program Opportunities." So, Adriana, are you ready? The floor is yours.
Yes. Hello, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes. Okay, good. I won't be long because my colleagues covered everything that I had in mind to close really the loop. So I will just give a broader picture of what already has been touched upon from a technical point of view from my colleagues here, but also from a strategic point of view by our the executive director in the plenary this morning. So I will just say a few words on how GSA in its transition to EU SPA will fit into the EU priorities that are set top down from the European Commission, European institution, down to the member states' priorities. And I will also try to say a few words about this bottom-up approach on how we plan to fit in the member states' national priorities and according to the specificity of each member state. And also how we fit, for instance, in the new industrial policy that just came out not too long ago, and how we fit now in the twin transition to the green and digital EU, and how we can basically bring these priorities set at the Commission level down in the member state national strategies. So as we have heard, EU space infrastructure and services provide really many of the building blocks for applications. And we saw how Galileo data and Copernicus data have been used recently to respond to the crisis. For instance, on the same topic, we have Galileo on one side that helped finding solutions to facilitate the border crossing. So using GNSS data, location data, and how also when it comes to facilitating border crossings, Copernicus helped authorities to understand the impact of traffic congestion at the borders. So we see how, in a practical manner, how these two technologies are so complementary. And in the future, so today GSA, tomorrow EU SPA, is committed to make use of such synergies when it comes to developing multidimensional applications, as we saw, products, services, so according to the new missions that are set in the in the new space regulation. As we exit the crisis, now the virus crisis, what we will try to look into is how to support member states in an instrumental manner to recover and emerge stronger from the crisis. As you may have heard, the recovery plan just came out not too long ago, a few days ago, and we saw that between the 14 industrial ecosystems settled in this recovery plan, aerospace and defense is one of them. So at the EU level, the decision makers and the policymakers are really taking into account the possibilities as using space as an enabler for the recovery. And when my colleagues touched upon how we can really integrate SMEs, startups into our work and into GSA USPA's daily work, and how we can also encourage the non-space SMEs to reach out to the space technology available out there and really revamp their traditional operating mode. And for this, of course, we need to make a lot of awareness raising. Also, like has just been said, among the public sector, I think that we need to create much more demand in the public sector and promote the use of space data as a standard method, as it happened with eCall, for instance, 112. So these are our policy areas that are fundamental for the policy decision makers, where we could use our European infrastructure as reference. We can use Galileo as reference, and we can create products made in Europe, space products made in Europe. So we need to really fight for this and promote our what we have, promote the infrastructure that is out there, that is entering into this exploitation phase. So it's really big times now that we could really take advantage of Galileo. And obviously, I'll just say one more word on the Galileo, EGNOS, Copernicus seen as key assets for the Digital Age Initiative and Green Deal, it was mentioned, and the connectivity window that is out there in the recovery plan that has just been presented by the Commission. And I want to say also a few words regarding the Croatian presidency, stressing the need to invest in space-based skills. To boost competitiveness and to boost our technological sovereignty. So yes, the upskilling is also another area where I think that the policymakers should look into and really encourage, as was said this morning, reaching out to traditional approach, helping them to look into what is out there when it comes to using these new technologies that are put forward by the decision makers. So we really need to really get down to the curricula, I would say, of the in schools, in high schools, preschool, to really encourage them to learn, to have it, to look into these new technologies as part of their daily lives. So this was stressed by the Croatian presidency. What else I was going to say, when it comes to GSA, USPA, and the commitment really to support national member states and with the transfer knowledge and the know-how that has been put in place so far with Galileo, and we also are looking into this possibility to expand this knowledge transfer and know-how acquired also when it comes to the Copernicus and the new users that are out there in the future, and that we will reach out to when the new regulation will be implemented as of next year. So yeah, maybe one more word when it comes to, we have the synergy among the technologies, but we should also look into the synergies with other union-related programs. As it was mentioned, we have to look into what is out there in integrating digital hubs, for instance, with new space hubs that could be created, or even innovation hubs that are out there, linking them nationally, but also regionally. So linking innovation hubs, digital hubs, space hubs, and see what the commonalities are out there for all these communities. and also Synergies. Could look also at the synergies when it comes to solutions developed under Horizon Europe. As you know, space belongs to the cluster with the digital and the industrial areas, and we have to look on directly into the synergies between these three components in order to make sure that the research that is done under Horizon Europe will also reach out to the market, so develop products that will be really available out there on the market later on. So, okay, that's more or less what I wanted to close the loop with all that has been said so far. And yeah, so thank you for listening.
Yeah, thank you, Adriana, for your contribution. As you know, we from Zagreb planned to visit GSA at the end of March, but due to the coronavirus pandemic, our plan was cancelled. So, but this is a way of compensation. Instead of being there in live in GSA, this is a way of compensation, having a meeting in this way by a webinar. So it's better than nothing. But I hope that there will be occasion to meet you at the GSA.
But this is just a flavor of it, because we are still planning on having the real thing.
Yeah, okay. It's yes, we are still planning. We are live, and we have plans, and hopefully this plan will have life. Oh. So thank you once again. So is Fiammetta there, or she left us?
I think that she entered into a new meeting.
Okay.
Not too long ago.
Okay, so just to look at if there is any question from the audience. Yes, there is one. There is Anne Johnson asking if, stating that these are great presentations and slides. And she asks whether the slides will be available after the event. This is the question for our host. I hope that all the presentations will be available on the website. Yeah. I have just a few questions. Maybe Edward can answer. It is related to EGNOS. I know that there are plans about upgrading of EGNOS to V3, meaning version 3. Can you say us a little bit more about that?
We are usually very careful saying the perspective of the new services when they are still in the very early phases of development, like HC's case. Unfortunately, I cannot give you more details, and because there are still a lot of discussions being done, and what will be the characteristics of the services and so on. There are what I can tell you is that there are 2 new services that are foreseen earlier, which are the OSNMA for authentication and the high accuracy service, which are expected to be having initial services in 2021, 2022. So this is the 2 services that are, let's say, the next ones and the next versions on EGNOS. Unfortunately, I cannot give you details.
Mm-hmm. So it is something that is under development.
Yes.
Okay. Another question that is related to Galileo, a very useful technology for me, which since I come from the geodetic GNSS positioning domain. So there are 4 services in Galileo: the open service and the search and rescue, which are still in place. But there are 2 other services, namely public regulated service and high accuracy service. So they are under development. Fiammetta told us just a few sentences on the slide, but once again, maybe you, Edward, or anyone else can tell us a little bit more about when those services are about to be fully operational.
So for PRS, I can give you a similar answer like the previous one, but it's for a different reason. PRS, it's a highly classified service just for, as Fiammetta explained, is for public institutions and let's say, fire workers or coastal guards. And this service is still in development, but it's something that is very classified, and information about how it's done and about the service itself, it's not public. It's not, because eventually it will not be for a public general use. And in any case, the PRS in its initial service is already available, but as I said, public information, it's not for the public general use. As for high accuracy, it's as I said before, it's a future service that it's being developed right now. It in the roadmap that it's being conceived, it has 3 phases. We are now in the phase 0. Then there is phase 1 and phase 2 left in development. And what I can say is that what are we targeting as the performance of the final service? That we are targeting an accuracy of 20 centimeters with corrections. It will be a PPP service with corrections being sent via the satellites directly through the E6B channel. So this service, it's of course under development. There are some parts that are under procurement already, and the part of the project has already started, but there are many elements that have still to be done. What we are doing now is a consultation with stakeholders to see what is the interest, and possibly we will open a testing campaign involving several manufacturers or interested stakeholders, either by the end of this year or the beginning of next year. So this is a service that early testing could be done, yes, as I said, end of this year or beginning of next one, and the initial service provisioning is expected later at the end of phase 1.
Okay, thank you. And for the usage of those 2 services, PRS and HIS, can they be used by a mass market GNS receivers, or they are quite, how to say, dedicated, some special receivers, the services can be used?
So I can talk for the high accuracy service, which basically, as I said, requires a receiver that is capable of receiving E6 signal, which mass market devices currently are not implementing. Nonetheless, we're of course non-discarding type of mass market devices such as for automotion, which we consider being part of mass market, because it's eventually it's a device that is being used by many people and by citizens. It's not classified as professional devices, but still it's not LBS, it's not smartphones, which have a limitation in the size, in the of the antenna and so on, it poses more challenges for implementing E6. So in any case, the high accuracy service is thought for these kind of markets that are emerging, like autonomous driving, robotics, or drones. So for these markets, of course, we see a huge penetration and a huge impact. For the professional segments, not so much, because basically they are using augmentation service and they require millimeter or centimeter accuracy, which is not the accuracy that we are targeting with the high accuracy service. As I said, we are targeting for now 20 centimeters. But we see a lot of potential in the mass market. Let's see how the receiver industry is evolving, and in any case, the corrections will not only be sent by the signal in space directly by the satellite, but we are also foreseeing a terrestrial distribution on the internet for the corrections. So even not having direct access to the satellites, you could still benefit from the high accuracy service. So this could be an option for the mass market that is not able to implement receivers using E6.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Since we are in perfect schedule, there is another question which I think it is, so there is a lot of our users who are interested in, and it is about the declaration of Galileo full operational capability. So when it's supposed to happen?
Maybe I leave Adriana as international relations to answer this question.
It happened, but you are the specialist. You should answer. So it happened. It's there. Maybe the question is more like when the full constellation will be accomplished. And that will happen hopefully next year with the launch 11. But full operational capability is out there. It's been there for a couple more, 3 years now, more than that. So I let you get into the technicalities.
Yeah, well, as for everything, Galileo it's there, and most of the satellites are there, and you can use it almost as a full capacity. Of course, there are some satellites that are still to reach full operational capacity. There are some satellites that are still missing to be operative. But as Adriana said, it's foreseen to have full operational capacity at some point next year. But these things. We need to see how things evolve, and let's see how everything ends up. But that's the objective.
Yeah, and of course we are really looking forward to see the declaration of full operational capability of Galileo. So
yeah, but also as my colleague mentioned, this declaration is a very important milestone. But we should always remember that Galileo is now operational. We can already experience several differentiators of it. So it's already the system that can be used by the users. And this is something that we have to have in mind. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sure. So there is an answer from our host, stating that the video of presentation will be on the website until 10th of June. So I think that we have come up to the end of our session. I would like to thank to all the presenters for the very interesting and comprehensive presentations. And I would like to invite the audience to follow our next session, which is set to start at 50:30, and also to follow the activities set for tomorrow. Once again, thanks to everybody to the presenters and to the audience, and I wish you a good day.
Thank you very much.